My name is Jeremy Whitney, and I know most of you have heard my story before, and just like you, I couldn't believe everything that happened on my journey as well. But for those of you that don't know, let me take you back to my senior year in high school where everything started. I was born to two athletes. My dad was a local football legend who couldn't really fulfill his dreams due to a crazy knee injury. My mom was a hooper who couldn't fulfill her dreams due to me and my dad. If you don't understand what I'm saying, basically my mom got pregnant before graduating high school, which meant she had to pass on her scholarship to play basketball and decided to take care of me. Shortly after that, my dad blew out his knee and joined the workforce, to take care of me. I owe my folks a lot because they sacrificed a lot for me and they didn't really have to. But with my dad being a legend in our city, I was always reminded of how awesome he was on the field, and the stories I would hear in the barbershop seemed unbelievable, which led to me wanting to play as well. The glory days stories that I heard about my moms and pops used to keep me up at night, wanting to be just like them, and that was my motivation. But all those dreams turned to nightmares for me on the field. All the way up to now, I was a second string running back, and it was looking like playtime was never going to come for me until the first string running back transferred schools, which meant it was my time to shine. But there was one problem, or should I say one huge problem, and that was my weight. Started my senior year, I was 6'1", 279 pounds. I was the heaviest player on the team, but I wasn't just big, I was super strong too. That was one thing about my dad that I loved. He kept me in the gym and he kept helping me get stronger and stronger every day. Now, all the other positions was filled, and to the dismay of my head coach, I had to play running back. You think about it. I knew all the plays, all the calls, and everything needed for the position. And with my experience in the backfield, coach said it was just easier to keep me there than to train someone else to learn it in such a short amount of time. But I was ready. No one else was, but I was ready. Coming in as a no-name recruit, 0 stars to my name meant that I could come out and play with free will. No one had any expectations for me but to hold on to the ball and run hard. I literally felt like a crash test dummy out there because I was getting abused. Coach had put me in on punt and kickoff return just so I could get the feel of running the ball, and it helped a little bit, but I was slow as dirt. I had no agility, but the way I figured if I ran hard enough and made it hard on the opposing team to take me down, eventually they would get tired of trying to hit me and the game would become easier. And it slowly did become easier because this next play, I was bouncing off of people left and right. Instead of feeling like a crash test dummy, at this point, I was feeling like a wrecking ball. And my team was hyped behind me, which just made me play even harder. And then the next play after that, coach puts the ball in my hands again. I make a quick move and I actually score again, man. The feeling that I have being in this end zone, like I said before, is just unmatched. At this point, I don't know if I'm going to be the greatest of all time or if this is just a fluke. Later in the game, I had finally hit my stride. My coach was looking surprised that I had so much fight in me, and it was starting to look like I was proving him wrong, so he kept the ball in my hands. And when I tell you, I wanted to score on that drive so bad that I started carrying defenders on my back when I was running, and this was a defining moment for me. We had gotten all the way down to the 21-yard line, and this was my moment. I found the gap in the defense, and somehow I found my way into the end zone for my first career touchdown. The feeling was so good, and I can't lie. I low-key got an addiction to that feeling. I knew I wanted more. I craved it. And at that moment, I knew no one on that field could stop me from getting back in there. My first time in the local newspapers, and I was on a natural high that I couldn't come down from. This was the beginning of something great for me and the team. If you would have told me a couple of years ago that my debut game as a starting running back, that I would let alone score, but rush for 150 plus yards, I would have laughed in your face. And I knew that this was going to be the start of something good for me, but I didn't expect it to turn out the way that it did. Game 2 against Oceanside, I came in with the same intensity from game 1. My first play, I was breaking tackles and moving down the field like a vet, even stumbling a little bit, but I caught my balance and I kept running. Look, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but some teams just aren't better than you, and you have to take advantage of that. This was one of those games where the opposite team just lays down and you roll over them. This was going to be my breakout game. I had to take advantage of the situation, especially if I wanted to move up in the rankings and get some scholarship offers. And I felt like I was definitely taking advantage of the situation I was put in. The coach is putting the ball in my hands. He's trusting me to lead this offense, and that's exactly what I do on this play right here as I score a touchdown. It's the third quarter now, and it's 3rd and 4. Coach is looking just to get a first down. Me, with my mentality at this point, I'm looking to score. The blocks are all there, and I do get to the end zone again, carrying another player on my back, just like I'm carrying this team. Fourth quarter, and the coach is putting the ball in my hands again. He's just looking to get a first down, right? Run some time off the clock, but I'm breaking tackles, stiff arming, getting back into the end zone, making the score 20-7, just to make sure we solidify this win and we move on to the next game. Like, I'm feeling hype right now at this point in my career. Nobody can stop us. We win this game, and now we need to move on. Next game against Covina, and look, they're not the best team, but coach is already out here running the cheese plays. He knows that the jet fake is what we need to do out of the Wildcat, and we are making a statement early on in this game. And listen, if the scouts are not looking at me, I don't know who is, but I'm actually showing out. Fast forward to the second quarter, the end of the second quarter. It's a 3rd and 2 right now, so close to the end zone. And at this point, the way I've been scoring and the way I'm moving on the field, people are expecting me to score, especially when we are this close to the end zone. Coach whispered in my ear and told me, hey, man, you have a chance to break a lot of records at this high school. And that's not something that's been on my mind. Honestly, I'm just trying to make sure that I provide what the coach needs. And if he's saying that I can break records, then I will try my best to do it as I score again. We are out here, and it's 24-6, and coach is really, I feel like he's just making a mockery of the team and the defense. They fall for the jet again, and your boy is scooting for another touchdown. The way I'm running out here on the field is making it look as if I'm actually fast, but I'm not, man. Almost at 280 pounds, I'm not moving like that. 6'1", I'm just throwing people off me. I'm really just a big bear out here. I guess bears do move fast now that I think about it. But again, so close to the end zone, we end up scoring again. This game was over when it started. That game, I rushed for 237 yards, recording 5 touchdowns. If I wasn't catching someone's eye after this game, I knew something was up. Luckily for me, I jumped from a nobody to a 3-star recruit, and colleges were looking my way. I finally started to get some letters of interest from the local colleges and universities. Some notable colleges were looking my way as well. I even had some schools go as far as to offer me a scholarship, and with it being so early in the season, I was shocked. Honestly, whoever was interested, I was interested as well. After finally being named a 3-star athlete, I knew the pressure was on even more for me to perform, so I had to lock in mentally to make sure I didn't lose that ranking. Considering all the hard work I had put in, it would be a shame to go backwards now. But this was when the schedule started to get rough for us. With all the notoriety in the local media, teams started to plan for me exclusively, and San Bruno was no slouch. The run game wasn't providing for us like it was in the previous games, so coach had to send me on routes to make sure we kept the chains moving so we could score. Not saying that we gave up on the run completely, but every time we tried to run the ball, it wouldn't produce. And again, there was no way I was going to lose my rep. Coach is putting the ball back in the air right now, and that's exactly what we need to make sure we score a touchdown. But there was one play that kept getting me in the end zone, and that was a jet fake out of the Wildcat formation that no one seemed to be able to stop, and I found my way back into the end zone. Just another cheese play by the coach, and I love it. But San Bruno scored immediately after that, so I know I had to come out and steamroll their defense to give my team a chance to rest. So coach decided to put the ball in my hand, run some clock down. Even if San Bruno was going to stop us, he wanted to make sure that we took enough time off the clock so that the defense can sit and make adjustments, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I said steamroll, and you see I'm doing that. But we put the ball back in the air. My speed is not going to get us in the end zone, but it is going to get us our first down. Coming back out here, and again, this close to the end zone, you can count on me. But San Bruno is so tough. Coach calls a hurry up because he knows that if I get another shot, I can get in there. And it's 4th and goal. If we turn the ball over, that will be demoralizing. But luckily, the line steps up and we get into the end zone. Coming back late in the second quarter. This quarter is not over yet. Shout out to the defense for getting us a stop on this one. It's 3rd and 1. Just looking for the first down. That's what the coach told me. But as you can see, I am scoring another touchdown, man. I am on everybody's radar. Not only the scouts, but the defensive scouts from the other team. Back on the field, draining the clock. Coach is not really looking to score, but I'm looking to stat pad. And you got to know, anytime somebody's in motion, I'm getting that ball. The whole right side is left open for me, and I get another first down. Again, coach said that the mission is just to run time off the clock. But me, I'm getting yards, and I know that in the back of my mind. Try not to focus on that right now, but how can you not? When the blocks are looking this good and it's that much field in front of you, why not score? Last play of this game, hopefully, right? But again, somebody's in motion. We ended up turning this game up. 35-7 is the score, and it's looking like I was going to get back into the end zone, but luckily I didn't. Man, the way San Bruno came out in the first quarter, I knew this was going to be a statement game for both teams. And luckily for us, we locked in and made sure that every team in the state knew we were the team to beat. This was not only a statement game for the team as a whole, but a statement game for me. Being a new 3-star athlete meant everything to me. And I wasn't going to be the reason my rep was gone, nor was I going to be the reason the team lost. We sent those guys home crying, and I put on another 230-yard performance. At that moment, I saw my full potential, and I knew there was no one out there that could stop us. Unfortunately, those dreams were quickly shot down by Placentia. Not only were they undefeated, this was yet another team that game planned exclusively for me to dominate on the ground, which meant we had to go back to the air. But when the passing game was getting shut down as well, I'm not going to lie, I started to panic. Nothing was working, and I didn't realize until that moment, but our offense was one-dimensional. It was almost as if I wasn't making a big play, there was no chance of us winning the game. Not only that, but it was dumb easy for the other team to spot that as well. It was like no matter what play we ran or how hard I went, the scoreboard was still 0-0. And then coach, he had to motivate me again on the sideline and let me know that yes, while they are stopping us, we cannot give up. And I just had to put my head down and keep running the ball as hard as I can. Even when plays were being broken up, the quarterback's not tapped in, we got to keep going. And that's exactly what we're going to do, man. Late in this second quarter, we're looking to make a move, and I just want to make sure that I keep giving us first downs. But then coach put us back in the Wildcat, and that's when we finally broke loose. When I called height and saw that they went for the fake and I only had one man to beat, I put my head down, I looked back up, and I was off to the races. That was one of the biggest runs I had all season. Then, not only that, we bounced back, and the rest of our team looked like they were locked in as well. My quarterback started throwing dots, even looking over at the sideline at my coach. The look in his eyes was scary. He was super locked in, and this is when I really fell in love with the game and competition. The coach called a pass play for me to score, and this was a momentous moment. The play was the perfect call, so close to the end zone, and it worked. I would get my first passing touchdown reception, which was going to look great on my huddle highlights and diversify me as a running back. Looking at the Placentia team, I could tell after that, they were pretty much done. And we came out in the Wildcat, and I shouldn't even have to say the rest. But for the people who don't know by now, it was a touchdown. So much field in front of me, I had to take advantage. A 37-yard touchdown, and we were back on the board. After that, coach was back to running the ball down their throats, and I was more than happy to keep going. Back in the Wildcat, and it was the same result as all the other times I went into the end zone. But this time, I'm not gonna hold you, I was gassed. It's late in the game. I was too tired to make that extra burst into the end zone. And I know, unfortunately, that's something I need to work on. My pops and I, we try to get it in on the weekends, but sometimes we just don't have time. Life is hectic, what can I say? But we come back out and we actually end up scoring again. And I honestly didn't need that break. The momentum carried me over. By the end of the game, we had humbled the undefeated team, and I went off for 307 yards and 4 touchdowns, which would solidify me as a 4-star athlete going into the rest of the season. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I was a 4-star recruit, and the mail was piling up, and the scholarships were coming in heavy. About 10 schools offered me a scholarship, and this was only just the beginning for me. The seasons had changed, and it was starting to get a little cooler outside, which meant it was playoff football time. Now in the playoffs, we had to face off against a couple of teams that we had already beat. So this was just going to be a formality until we got to the state championship game. First game against Oceanside, it was business as usual. And you know you always got to stand on business. We end up scoring that first drive, and we are setting the tone for Oceanside, who has seen us and has had plenty of time to game plan for me. Like, I don't know how you can game plan for a big 6'1", 279 player coming full speed at you, but they tried their best, and I gotta tip my hat to them as I get back into the end zone, making the score 14-0. And of course, we do end up beating Oceanside in this round of the playoffs. Now we just gotta look forward to the state championship. Hopefully we can put our heads down and come up with a win. Now for the state championship, we faced off against Covina again, and I came out with a different intensity and mindset that I knew we weren't going to lose this game. I had to put on a show. And that's exactly what I did, or at least that's what I tried to do, right? Next play is the fake jet sweep again. And y'all already know what the consequences are when you go for the fake. But again, I'm so tired, man. The weight is weighing me down. I'm not moving as fast as I would want to, but the power is still there. And you know, this close to the end zone, I'm taking it in for a touchdown, breaking the ice on the 0-0. Letting Covina know that we did not come out here to mess around with these guys. And coach has been preaching, setting the tempo for a long time. Every game almost, that's all he talks about in the locker room. So that's what we came out here to do. I'm just glad that the team was on track and they believed in, they bought in to that mission. And now we're just driving even further down the field on the 7-yard line. And I'm going to take my time and get into the end zone again, carrying two people with me. It's starting to look like this was too easy. Now, I don't know what coach was thinking, but he kept putting me out there, having me carry the ball. You know, some plays work, some plays don't. And we were starting to get into that point where some of the plays didn't work. But that didn't bother me, man. First down after first down, I'm taking my time, looking out on the field, seeing what I have, what options I have available to me. Right here, coach drew up this play for me, specifically for the playoffs, and we ran it perfectly. Now again, anytime you see somebody in the motion, you know I'm getting the ball. I'm breaking a tackle, getting up the sideline, and listen, I was just getting started, man. I was just in my bag. Start of the fourth quarter, they trying to take me down in the backfield, and they cannot. And I'm just getting first yard after first yard. The amount of yards that I'm piling up in this state championship, I know that the scouts are watching. That is in the back of my mind, but winning is in the front of my mind. And coach calls the cheese play again. That's just what we call it in the locker room. And scoring this touchdown not only solidified us as champions, but it solidified me as one of the best running backs to ever do it. And just like that, we go on to win our first state championship since 1982. And I would love to think it was partially because of me. My name in the headlines in the Tribune, and I couldn't feel any better at that moment, especially considering after that playoff run, I went from a 3-star athlete to a 5-star athlete. My dreams had came true. I went from a nobody, no scholarships, not even sure if football was really for me, to a 5-star recruit. Multiple big name schools offered me a chance to impact their schools the same way I did at my high school. USC, West Virginia, and UCLA. Just some of the top names that were offering me a full ride, and everything seemed like it was going my way. But as I quickly learned, everything that glitters ain't gold. Having these offers felt so good, I can't lie. Coming from a nobody to a player with decisions coming signing day was an amazing feeling. Unfortunately, that feeling started to diminish once I started speaking to the coaches. Majority of my 5- and 4-star teams wanted me to switch positions. The most they were willing to negotiate was fullback, and it wasn't going to be the first string player either. They said they might get me in on 3rd down or close to the goal line, but the only way to get the full football experience, as they would say, would be to move away from running back into another role. I wasn't going for it. I really wanted to be a running back at the top school, and I can't lie, I was super stubborn, which led me into a huge depression stint. And bad news for me was, when I was sad, I was eating to make myself feel better. And of course, with all that emotional eating, my weight was getting crazy. I mean, I put on so much weight, I was tripping when I seen the scale say 325. And this is why I always mention him, but Huge shout out to my dad. He really wasn't for the self-pity party that I was going through, and he helped me realize that even though I wasn't getting the opportunity to play running back, I was still getting an opportunity that my mom and him never had. He was disappointed and felt like I was being a spoiled brat. I had to take some time and think about it, and he was right. Although I couldn't go to a top school like I expected, there were still some options for me on the table. And that's how my journey officially started. On signing day, I decided to go with Arkansas State, where they were offering me a chance to stay at my position, but I would have to come in and prove to the coach that not only could I hold the position down, but that my weight wouldn't be a problem. When the news broke that I had committed to Arkansas State, I thought the town would be happy for me, and boy, was I wrong.
Welcome back to Redwood Football Radio, and we have Clarence on the line to talk about our team recruiting Jeremy Whitney, a 5-star running back from California, standing 6'1", with an earth-shattering, staggering weight of 297 pounds. Clarence, go ahead. I'm sure I'm about to say what all the Red Wolves fans are thinking, but put that fat motherfucker on the line where he belongs. Okay, Clarence, calm down now. This is a family radio. I don't care. I don't give a
At that moment, I knew I was walking into fire and I had a lot to prove. So I packed my bags to move across the country, and I had to watch my mama cry as I went into the airport for Arkansas. Our first practice, and I was literally and figuratively the big man on campus, and I had a lot to prove immediately. As I said before, coach had me at second string and didn't trust me behind the quarterback just yet. But during practice, I really felt like I was still in high school. I hear a lot of people say that going from high school to college is a big change, and I wasn't feeling any of that out there with this team. Now, that could be a good thing and a bad thing. You know, it could be a good thing because that meant I was getting back in my bag and no one could stop me. It could be super bad because that would mean this team was super trash and they were all out of my league. I was hoping that it was just me being the great player that I am. But anyway, fast forward to the first game of the season, and now I really felt like I was in high school. Coach had me on kickoff and punt returns. Anything outside of that, I was on the sideline watching everyone else do their thing and be happy on the field. Not saying that I was ungrateful as any other player, I just wanted to be on the field as much as possible. And even without me being on the field, we managed to win the game 21-16. But the kicker was, this was against an FCS team who I thought we should have slaughtered. The next practice, to my surprise, the coach was giving me the opportunity to compete for the first string position. After that first game and him going back to watch some of my high school games, he thought he could work me into the game plan, switching me in and out with the current starter. He believed that we should have beat the FCS school by much more, and he wasn't happy with the gameplay from the current starters. Now, the entire practice, I thought I was doing well. I thought the performance I had that day was for sure showing the coach something that he wanted to see. I wasn't going down easy, I was running hard, but by the end of the practice, he was still looking a little unsure about putting me in as a starter. I had to respect it, and deep down, all I could do was hope that the team would be trash in our next game so I could get another shot. But I wouldn't have to wait too long for coach to get fed up with our current players when I was finally put into the game during the second quarter against number 9 Auburn. Starting with the screenplay, and instead of me going out there and making coach proud, I stumbled behind the line, not even getting a chance to touch the ball. Luckily, coach didn't take me out straight away, and it gave me another chance. And when you know it, I lost 2 yards on a run. I was feeling super defeated at this point, and I started to wonder if everyone was right about me being a running back. Clarence, the guy from the radio, his voice was engraved in the back of my head, and that's all I could hear. Going against a top 10 school so early in the season, I felt like this was the perfect time and opportunity to prove Clarence and all the other non-believers wrong, but I just kept letting myself down. Luckily, my teammates were locked in, and we got all the way down to the 2-yard line when coach called the option play, and of course, Auburn blew that play up and I lost another 2 yards. I was quickly pulled off the field. At this moment, it was either sink or swim. Coach sent me in on a 5-yard drop, but I turned upfield instead and caught an 8-yard pass on 1st and 15, which will be my first positive stat the entire game. Well, the celebration in my mind quickly ended after that when coach called for a screenplay, and apparently there was some confusion between the QB and I because he threw a pick instead of dumping it down to me. With it only being a 3-point game so late in the game, the pressure was looking too heavy for us to handle. My next play, I decided to put all the energy I had into the play when I hit a spin and caught my footing to hopefully give the team a little surge of energy. And we're running the dreadful screenplay again. Luckily, I make a huge catch to give us some positive yards. Starting to find my groove, I went out for a 6-yard catch, but coach pulled me out of the game after that. In the red zone, and this was my moment, or at least I wanted it to be. Back in high school, this was the area where everyone in the world knew I was going to get the score. But unfortunately, I get stopped with only 3 yards gained. And that was the last time I saw the field that game, and we ended up taking the L against Auburn, only losing by 1 point. I finished with an amazing 7 yards on the ground and 23 yards in the air. I mean, that was the last straw for me. My mama and daddy didn't raise me to be a loser, so that next practice, I was going to impress the hell out of my coaches to make sure I locked up the starting position. I deserved to be out there. There was no running back on that campus that was better than me. And with that motivation, I found my way to the number 1 spot on the depth chart. My first game as a starter really turned up on 4th and 2. Coach was trusting me to get the first down, and I gave him a little more with a 7-yard run. My next turning point was another 4th down play where I went to the open part of the field to cash in on a 10-yard reception to give us another first down and closer to scoring. On the 1-yard line, I was feeling like my old self again, as I walk into the end zone, scoring my first career touchdown. I couldn't do anything but drop down to my knee, and thank God, because before this, it was looking like I was going to be a bust. Late in the first quarter, my lack of speed would truly show as the QB decided to give me the dump down, which turned into me slowly moving down the sideline for a 35-yard run. Man, I was so winded after that play. I was feeling dizzy, seeing the little floaty stuff in my eyes, and a pain in my side, bro. But I had to get back out there and do some damage when coach called a passing play on the 2-yard line. I had the opportunity to score my first passing touchdown, but when I got hit, I dropped the ball. This was the first time when I thought that my size was really affecting the way I played and how much I played. Not only was I feeling like crap, my coach could see it in my play. I would come out and make one big play and then get pulled out for about 5 minutes. Luckily for me, my coach was putting me in during great opportunities. For instance, on the 9-yard line, I came in well rested and took it down the middle for my second rushing touchdown of the game. And just like that, I went from second string running back to being responsible for my team winning the game. The feeling was like it was back in high school. That high that I felt, I didn't want to come down from it. Not only that, but I was named player of the game with 68 yards on the ground and 71 in the air. Our next game will be against the number 22 ranked Memphis. I started the game with a 7-yard reception that helped get the team going. On 4th and 1, I went for another 7-yard gain, and I was lit. That feeling of being unstoppable was back. Going with that feeling, I was put in another position, and I took full advantage. From the 16-yard line, I went out and caught a 16-yard reception where I broke 2 tackles at once to score a touchdown. I wouldn't get it going again until the 3rd quarter, and I started to realize that I had a huge problem with consistency in my game. Being tired all of the time from my bad conditioning wasn't going to make the most of my time on the field. I was actually spending more time off the field than on it. That's when I locked in and tried to put on a masterclass in running the ball. My QB was going crazy too, making 2 clutch plays out of the pocket, getting us all the way down to the 1-yard line, where I just knew coach was going to hand me the ball and score. But to my surprise, I was pulled out of the game for whatever reason. Back in the game, the bulldozer mentality was in full effect as I run over the safety for a first down. We were already beating Memphis, a top 25 team, so badly that when the QB threw an absolute dot for another score, which was bad news for me, because that meant it was garbage time for a second string. But of course, we win the game, and I had one of my best games that season with 121 rushing yards, 41 in the air, and 1 touchdown. Now, this is the part of the season I like the most because I finally had some free time with our bye week coming up, and checking in on my stats, they were not looking phenomenal as I thought they would. With 54 carries, I was only at 210 yards for the season. I mean, averaging only 4 yards per carry. I thought it would be a little higher. I had to call home because, as you may remember, my mom was in tears when I left for Arkansas, so I had to make sure I spent plenty of time with her on FaceTime, letting her see the dorm, the campus, locker room, all that. Between you and I, she didn't want me to leave California, and if I was going to leave, she would have preferred that it was at least the next state over. And we all know how mamas are, but look, you only get one, and I would rather have a mom that wanted me around than one trying to send me away. All right, but back on the field versus an undefeated Appalachian State, and we were truly looking like a 3-2 team as my QB comes out and throws an interception on our first drive. We desperately needed to make something shake, and although I was having moments of greatness, I just couldn't string together a complete drive to really impact the game the way I wanted to. Until late in the 3rd quarter, where I ran a kid over to get a first down. Then the next play, I went out for a 20-yard pass that lit the team and I on fire. But it seemed like the coach had something against me because every time we made it to the goal line, I was on the sideline watching. Was it that he didn't want me to be happy? Fourth quarter and the game was tied at 14. Coach calls the option play and things seemed like they were coming together as I go off for a 13-yard rush. 3rd and 11, and the QB pulls out another miracle dot as we get all the way to the 3-yard line to make this a one-score game. For the first time in the game, Coach doesn't pull me out, and I knew I had to touch that end zone at least once before the game was over. Luckily for me, the line made a huge hole for me to walk into the end zone. App State comes out and scores, tying the game up yet again, and I know I need to do something to shift the momentum. With that in mind, I go down the field for a 25-yard reception to get the team back in it. Unfortunately, the drive turned into nothing, and we were headed to overtime. But Coach calls a run for me, and I go for 7 yards, and Coach gives us the signal to hurry up to run a play again, and I walk into the end zone. App State scores, and we're back on the field for our turn, and Coach calls a pass play, and I take advantage of the space and score a passing touchdown. With sudden death into play, none of our plays were successful, and Coach comes out with a kicking team to win the game by 3. I win player of the game, of course, with 90 yards on the ground and 81 in the air. After that game, I was named the Sun Belt Conference Player of the Week. I didn't have a big head here in the news, but I guess my coach thought I did. And the next week, he would call himself punishing me for it. And that next game was against the unbelievable undefeated Louisiana team. We started the game off letting them know they haven't played a real game yet. Although I didn't receive the kickoff, I made some crucial blocks to help get my teammate down past midfield to start our opening drive. That drive gave us 3 points, and I wasn't seeing the field a lot this game. Again, I'm not sure what the coach had against me, but with a 4-2 record, I didn't think my time on the sideline was what the team needed to win games. I mean, don't get me wrong, we were winning this game, but I wanted the ball. I know that sounds selfish, but let's be honest. In this game, it's out of sight, out of mind, and I wanted to make sure no one forgot who I was. So when I did get the ball, I ran hard. Make sure the next time I ran the ball, the defenders got out of my way. And that's exactly what they did late in the fourth quarter when I bounced off players to cash in a 53-yard run for a touchdown. That was my statement to the coaching staff, to put me in the game, because I was a playmaker, not someone that you put in the game every now and then. I finished the game with 94 yards on the ground and 13 in the air. Next game, we were going against an equally bad team in South Alabama. Opening drive, I steamrolled players for a 5-yard rush. I guess after last game's performance, coach was going to trust me and let me play. I was getting tough yards at this point because the passing game was nowhere to be found. That is until the QB hit one of our playmakers and he went off for 36 yards to get us into the red zone where I knew I had to be getting the ball, and I did, but not in the form of a run. Instead, we put it back in the air to break the seal off the scoreboard. In the second quarter, coach is calling the dreadful option play, and what looked like a huge loss of yards, I ended up trucking a player who would cause it, and I'll go for 9 yards. I continue to help the team get big yards in the next pass play when I see a lot of open space in front of me, getting us all the way down to the 1-yard line where I wanted to get the ball again. But coach called the option, and instead of me scoring, the QB pushed more points on the scoreboard. At this point, I'm thinking, what do I have to do to get into the end zone again? The passing game was really messing up this South Alabama team now. And when coach called the passing play on the 7-yard line, I went to the weak part of the defense to capitalize, scoring my second touchdown in the air for this game. In the third quarter, it was looking like the run game was finally working as I scooped for a 25-yard run in midfield. But later, coach decides to put it back in the air, and instead of pouting about it, I make a tough catch and get another catch and touchdown added to my stats. We win the game, and although my rushing stats weren't high, I managed to get 79 on the ground and 76 in the air with 3 passing touchdowns. Now, speaking of my rushing yards not being so impressive, I would run into a wall as far as that goes. I was at a crossroads in my mind on whether the lack of yards was my fault or the offensive line's fault. I know in the public, the QBs and running backs always put the blame on themselves when it comes to situations like this, but let's keep it a beam. Sometimes it is the line's fault. And when it is, we have to keep it to ourselves to not hurt the team morale. And again, I can't really complain because we're winning. I'm getting into the end zone, but it's not at the consistency and frequency that I want it to be. Maybe I'm just too over-competitive and I expect so much more of the team, but was that a bad thing? Maybe it had become too toxic that it would be a bad thing. I don't know, but I do know Our 7-3 record should be 10-0. We do end up winning this game though. That got close at the end, but I only rushed for 68 yards and had 31 receiving yards. Winning player of the game off those type of stats was wild to me. Our next game was against Western Kentucky, and I was back to not getting the time I thought I deserved, but when I did get in, the screenplay went for 37 yards after dropping a body 20 yards back. Coach couldn't deny that I was a dog, but for whatever reason, he was. I was running hard and got us all the way down to the red zone where I was taken out, standing on the sideline watching someone else run my touchdown in. At this point, I was thinking, F it. If this coach is going to allow me to rot on the sideline, then I might as well take my talents to a coach that was going to let me see it through. Why would you let me work so hard to get us in score position and not let one of the most unstoppable players on your team not score? And I know this sounds crazy looking back on it, but come on, bro. Does this not look crazy to you? I know I had conditioning problems early in the season, but this is the last game of the regular season. You gotta let me cook a little bit. There wasn't a time this season when I wasn't the best player out there. But for whatever reason, I spent the majority of that time sidelined. I know I sound crazy complaining even though we are destroying this team, but this was one of my worst performances with only 62 yards rushing and 60 in the air. Now it was bowl season, and after a 9-3 season, we found ourselves in the RL New Orleans Bowl against a number 24 ranked UAB. The environment was like something I had been craving for a long time. I had to lock in, and I started off strong as I started the game with a 20-yard rush. Not going with that momentum, coach decides to call a pass play on 3rd and 21 where the QB severely overthrows me and is back to the sideline. And our dumbass coach decides to keep the ball out of my hands again as the QB decides he plays for the other team and throws it right to them, stopping us from scoring again. And it gets worse because the QB comes out again and throws another pick. Luckily, I get the stop, but the defense doesn't. And now we're down 7-0 in my first bowl game. I guess the QB got tired of the coach bitching at him because our next drive he comes out and finally completes a pass. Coach calls an option play and I don't get the ball, but we do score to tie the game up before half. Coach came back out in the third, sticking with the pass play, not letting me get into any type of groove as we try and work our way down the field. I'm thinking if you can't beat them, join them. So I'm going out here and getting some receptions as well because after all, a win is a win. And if we somehow win this game, I want to make sure I contributed somehow. Fourth quarter, and we're down 4. I get the ball. I stumble for a 7-yard gain. 3rd and 9, I go down the field, sneaking behind the defense to make a reception for 25 yards. I don't need to mention this is a crucial drive, but it definitely is. 3rd and 5, on the 13-yard line, coach calls another pass play, and the QB doesn't make a play or passes the ball, which means we now have to go for it on 4th and 12. Now, I beat my defender by a mile, and the QB overthrows me by a mile. And that was our season. One bad throw too many, one bad play call too many. And in my opinion, not getting me the ball enough. At that moment, I had enough. I was fed up with the coach not utilizing me the best way possible. Walking off that field as a loser was the most hurtful part, especially considering I did everything I could do, but the coach did it. Needless to say, this was going to be my last game wearing this uniform. At the end of it all, I only rushed for 678 yards, but I was a first-team Sun Belt All-American. The coaching staff was all in my face, letting me know that next season was going to be even better for me. Talking about bringing in new linemen, new QB, all that crap. But in the back of my mind, I knew what I was going to do before this meeting. How do I tell them? Man, being out of Arkansas, being in my own bed, I was comfortable considering I just had a very uncomfortable talk with the coaching staff back in Arkansas. Let me take you back so you all can understand how we got to this point. I had to be honest with them and let them know that I wasn't happy with the way the season ended, especially considering I spent most of my time on that team on the sideline watching. The coach reminded me that although I was proving every day that my conditioning wasn't an issue and I pulled off some clutch performances, he just wasn't too sure about my consistency. He promised me that if I decided to stay, he would give me a much bigger role as some of our key linemen were coming back next season and there will be a new freshman QB as the starter. He just wanted to make sure that my head was in the right place moving forward, and I can't lie, after settling down and spending some time alone to think about it, he was right. Although in my mind I felt as if I missed out on a lot of opportunities on the field, I still needed to prove that I could handle playing a full game. So at that moment, I was sold on what the coach was saying. I mean, that is until all hell broke loose over ESPN. So Coach Deion Sanders announced that he would be leaving Jackson State and he would be headed to Colorado University. Not only that, but he mentioned that he would be starting from scratch once he got there, and anyone willing to join was welcome. The transfer portal was now open. You started to see 5-star recruits leave their teams and head to play for Coach Prime. New recruits who committed to one school decommit and announced they were headed to Colorado as well. And that's how we got to this point. I'm home right now talking to my pops about what could potentially be the greatest opportunity I could ever have. And of course, my pops was all for it. Not to mention, my mom was more than happy to see me off the East Coast and moving a tad bit closer to home, although she really wanted me back in California. So here I was, back in Arkansas, talking to the coaching staff, letting them know the decision I had come to. According to my dad, I needed to speak with them like a man. No burnt bridges, he would always tell me. Shortly after that, I took to social media and made my decision. I was officially entering the transfer portal where I would be taking my talents to Colorado. Now, off top, I was enjoying the way Coach Prime was handling the new role. Everybody started off equal until they could prove that they deserved a chance to start, which boosted the competition at all the practices. This was exactly what I needed to make sure no matter what people saw on the outside, like my weight, all that mattered is how I played. And when I tell you I was taking every opportunity to run somebody over, I did just that. Not only were we playing for a spot, but we were playing for our numbers. This was the type of environment I needed to be in to help push me to the next level. Unfortunately for me though, our first game against our rivals Colorado State, I was on the sideline watching as my team went out and held the team down, destroying State with a score of 24-8. Now y'all know the old me would have been upset that I didn't get to play as much, but to my surprise, coach was giving me an opportunity to play for the next spot. I failed to mention that there was a lot of talent here, and I was nowhere close to being the starter of this team. But it was something about the system that coach had laid out that just made the journey not only fun, but worth it. Our first touch in this battle instantly got me the nod for the coaches, and I was making my way up in the rankings and in the eyes of the staff. And I kept pouring it on. I was on a mission that day, and every opportunity I got, I was treating it like I wasn't going to get another one. The next game, I didn't get to see the field, and it was against an FCS school. And here again, I'm thinking we should destroy this team, and we end up doing just that, winning 17-3. So that next game against Fresno State, it took a turn for the worse because we end up taking a tough L, losing 35-21. And I knew this was going to be my moment because that next practice, Coach Prime was shaking things up. I was about to play for second string, which meant this was an opportunity to see some playing time. With that on my mind, I went out there and I tried to give everybody who tried to tackle me CTE. I know that sounds crazy, but that was the state of mind I was in. And looking back on the film, it paid off. Nobody could touch me at that moment, even if they tried. And before I knew it, Coach was going to give me my shot. I had found my way to second string on the depth chart, and I was getting my first chance against number 16 Oregon State. Now, my first snap in that black and gold, bruh. When you know it, I end up losing 4 yards on my first carry. How crazy does that look on the stats, though? 1 carry for -4 yards was nuts. The next time I carried the ball was on 3rd and 3, only getting 1 yard to my name, and I was still in the whole 3 yards, which meant I had -3 yards to my name. Oh, and it gets much worse. Coach decides to put me back in, and I rush for -3 yards again. Like, bro, I'm laying on the ground like, no way this is what my career has come to. There's no way I'm going to finish my first game in Colorado with -6 rushing yards. I mean, luckily we win the game, but -6 was crazy. That next practice was personal, and coach was giving me a chance to become a starter. And I know that sounds crazy, especially coming off a -6 rushing yard performance, but this is why I'm always going to ride for Coach Prime. He saw in me what I saw in me. He believed in me even with me being 280-something. He saw the hunger and the pain in my eyes watching from the sideline, and that trumped the poor performance I had last game. And I paid him back on the field. Again, I ran everything over in my sight. The defense couldn't hold me even if the whole team was on me. Believe me, at that practice, I could have carried them all on my back. Needless to say, with the way I practiced that day, I was a solidified starter. Coach had seen enough, and he'd rather stop me now than risk me injuring someone else or even myself, because we had a lot more season left to play. And what a crazy game to get my first start in. We were facing number 23 Oregon, and if this wasn't a stage to prove I was the best, I don't know what was. That is until my first attempt, and again, it was -3 yards. But what happened next is going to blow your mind even further. Shedeur and I went out for an option play. When the D lineman rushed straight towards me, took me out, Shedeur decides to toss the ball back as if I'm still there, and we get a turnover at midfield. Oregon, of course, scores off the great field position, and I come back in. Finally, my first positive rushing experience since I've been on the field. On 4th and 2, coach puts the ball in my hand as I get us a first down to keep the drive alive. I'm finally getting into a groove as I find a hole in the defense and run for 31 yards, leaving a kid on his back down at the 39-yard line. Just the momentum switch we needed to get this game up. 3rd and 7, Shedeur drops back to find Jimmy Horn for a nice gain, getting us down to the goal line where I'm informed I'm not getting the ball. Instead, the fullback takes us in for our first points of the game. And y'all should be proud of me, guys. I didn't complain about not getting the ball. I mean, after my first season at Arkansas State and hearing Coach Prime's talks, I knew I had to prove I deserved the ball in moments like that. And my next time touching the ball, I did just that. Finding the open parts of the field, making quick decisions with my feet got me the opportunity to see the end zone for the first time in Colorado. An explosive 52-yard run touchdown to shut the Oregon defense up. But Oregon would do the same to our defense after numerous 3-and-outs from the offense, which meant 4th quarter, we had to tee up and make sure we don't lose this game. Crazy pass across his body to me to get us a first down. And then on the next play, I fight for 8 yards to move the chains again. We were looking unstoppable as I go for 6 yards to hopefully make this a victory drive down the field, but we stall out here and coach decides to bring out the kicking team to give us a 1-point lead. But with 18 seconds left in the game, with all our defense needing to do was bat down a floater, Bo Nix throws up what looks like a pick, but was actually a touchdown. We lose to Oregon in the most humiliating way ever. In my debut game as a starter, rushing for 140 yards with 1 touchdown. I mean, to be honest, we weren't supposed to beat Oregon. That's only if we're being honest. Yes, it would have been nice to beat them, and the entire nation would have to take notice of this team, but coach didn't want us to make losing a habit. And I'm not sure if the rest of the team got the message, but losing was about to become a trend for us. And it started with the next game against Arizona State. When I tell you our offense was stagnant, bro, our offense couldn't move the ball at all. This would go down as one of my worst collegiate performances with only 52 yards on the ground and 33 in the air. Coach wasn't happy, and neither was I. I had to come out that next game and make sure every other team we faced felt the pain. My first touch of the game against Arizona, I sent shockwaves through the stadium after leveling a kid to get the first down. When I tell y'all I was not playing any games with these fools, I meant that. Coach calls a genius halfback option with Shedeur and Zay that get us all the way down to the red zone, and coach was giving me the go ahead to run the next play. I put my head down, ran a man over, and I was back into the end zone. I had to put everyone on notice that we weren't slouches, and they were going to have to actually play us this game. I guess the Goofies didn't get the message the first time because they were still coming at me way too soft. Every chance I got, I put my head down and started carrying that Arizona team on my back. I was finally tapped into running with a purpose, and that purpose was simple. If you run head up with me, I was going to either hurt you, make you regret it, and make sure you never did it again. In saying all of that, we get down to the 1-yard line on 4th and 1, where I punch it into the end zone again, increasing our lead by 1 score. Although I was playing with a crazy intensity, our defense just wasn't. We come back out on the field with seconds left in the 4th, tied up, which meant we needed to make something shake right now. Shedeur finds me across the middle for a nice gain. I know some were thinking just get into field goal range, but I was thinking touchdown. Next time we put it into the air, I went off course to the open part of the field and fought for even more yards. I saw the look in coach's eyes, and he gave me the nod like, you know what to do. And with 17 seconds left on 2nd and 11, I locked in, weaving in and out of the hole, stumbling, regaining my feet to score the game-winning touchdown. It took about 3 linemen to hold me up after that, but that feeling was back. This is what I was talking about, bro. Coach Prime showing me that he trusted me at that moment meant the world to me, and that was all I wanted. A coach who would give me a chance, and I took full advantage. I ended up rushing for 133 yards with 3 touchdowns and winning player of the game. Now, coming off a victory and a performance like that, you think I'd be in high spirits, but I was in a dark place, and I can't lie, my focus was shifted. I was just on the phone with my mom, who was in tears, telling me what had been going on back home. My dad, who had been in remission from prostate cancer for the past 3 years, had just found out at a routine checkup that there was something growing on his prostate. I was sick to my stomach hearing the news, and it didn't help that my mom was in my ear about me staying home for college, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know, maybe she was right. Maybe I needed to be home with my pops. We almost lost him once, and I would feel terrible if he was to pass away and I wasn't there to say goodbye. Good news is, our next game was at UCLA, which meant my dad would get to see me play and I could visit them afterwards considering the circumstances. But to my surprise, UCLA had a squad and bruh, they let us know real quick. They were ranked number 18 in the country, and with my folks in the stands, I had to come out and show my pops I was really like that. I'm talking about every time I touched the ball, I was getting at least 10 yards per carry. In my mind, I'm just like, if this is the last time my pops gets to see me play IRL, I want to make sure I put on a show for him so he could be in the stands like, yeah, that's my son. We get all the way down to the 6-yard line where yet again, I'm feeling unstoppable as I score. And you already know I'm looking in the stands for my folks afterwards. Now back on the field in the third, and the score is all tied up, but I'm about to kick it in overdrive as I go for 7 yards. That next play was something special though, as I make my way to the next level, rushing that time for 22 yards, and I already have 125 on the ground at this moment. 3rd and goal, and coach calls a screenplay, which turned out to be the perfect play as I schooled in to score another touchdown. This time I had to hit my little dancey dance for the hoes, and my folks in the stands to let them know I'm really him. Now, as you can imagine, at this point in the 4th quarter, all we need to do is run the clock down. But when I get the ball and run it fall down kind of weird, coach pulls me out for the rest of that drive. Unfortunately, the 2nd string running back fumbles the ball. UCLA recovers, and now we're down by 1 point, and we need at least a field goal to salvage this game. On 4th and 2, Shedeur tries to squeeze a pass in a tight window, and that was the game. No way. We just lost by 1 point in front of my folks, especially after that performance I just put up, which was 159 yards on the ground with 1 rushing touchdown and 1 passing TD. Now, losing by 1 point was tough. Having to leave my parents to finish out the season was even tougher. Going up against number 7 Washington was about to be even tougher than that. Having a 4-4 record was starting to show. We couldn't afford to lose many more games before we wouldn't even be considered for a bowl game. And it was looking as if a bowl season was nowhere to be found. The offense couldn't get going. The defense was definitely not doing anything against this Washington offense, and things were slowly starting to crumble around us. Realization set in, especially for those looking at the schedule, that this might be a losing season for all of us who wanted to come in immediately and win something big for the school. Don't get me wrong, we had moments of greatness where we scored, but everyone just looked slow and sluggish. I almost felt like the squad had given up after our previous loss. At that moment, I didn't know if I was the only one still fighting. And with everything going on at home, I started to feel like, why am I the only one left fighting? With everything I got going on in my life, why am I the only one showing effort? After Shedeur throws a pick 6 late in the 3rd quarter to put us down 21-6, team folded, and we ended up taking another L on the season. I rushed for 126 yards and had 71 yards receiving. Back at Colorado to face off against Cal, and from this point on, I was playing for myself. If going pro was an option for me, I had to make sure every time the camera was on me, I was doing something to catch a scout's eye. Bouncing off guys, showing my agility, even with all this weight, was going to be a sure way to do it. The next play, I had murder on my mind. From the 43-yard line, coach called an option, and when I tell you any defensive player that touched me bounced off me, I meant that. I don't know how many tackles I broke or how my feet was moving so fast. All I know is I didn't stop until I heard a whistle blow, and I found myself in the end zone. From this moment, it was going to be the Get Jeremy Whitney to the NFL show, and anyone that didn't like it could get steamrolled at any time. Again, this is why I'm always going to rock with Coach Prime, because he was willing to let me go out there and rock. He saw me as a competitor and a skilled player. I was put it on for this team no matter win, lose, or draw, and he respected that. I wasn't going out there to let anyone down, not me, not my parents, and not the guys who became family. I knew I didn't have a chance at Heisman with the record we have right now, but next year, they had to know I was going to be a problem in Colorado. Late in the 3rd, and I'm back into the end zone again celebrating with the guys. I put up a staggering 227 yards on the ground in another win. Of course, that was player of the game numbers, which I do win. Another chance to go up against a top 5 school. This time it's against USC, and the game is going exactly how you would expect it to. Already down 10, I come out and make a huge play catching a ball for a 51-yard run after catch, leaving somebody in the snow a few yards back. Talk about setting the tone as coach gives me the nod, even after the long run to go ahead and punch it in, and now we on the board. I'm going to keep saying this over and starting over again. But Coach Prime made me feel like the man out there. And I knew as long as I kept proving him right, I will remain out there. First and goal, late in the third, coach again gives me the go ahead to put my head down and score the ball. I couldn't let him down considering almost every time we faced the top 25 school, we lost. If we took the L this time, it wouldn't be because of me. And ultimately, it was because of our defense that we lost that game. And it only got worse from here because next up, we were facing off against number 4 Utah. And the teams just kept getting tougher the deeper we got into the schedule. Teams were really practicing to go against me, and every yard I got, I had to fight for. There were no more huge breakout carries. These teams were ready for everything we threw at them. Every audible, play action. It didn't matter how many tackles I broke, who I ran over. Luckily for me, I was prepared for that. But I believe I might have been the only one. Shador, Shiloh, and Travis, we were all locked in. But as for the rest of the guys, I guess you can only take so much of a beating before you eventually see things aren't going to go your way. With this being the last game of the season for us and no bowl hope, the team laid down and took the last L of the season. Coming from the record I had in Arkansas and actually going to a bowl game there, this was a tough situation. Maybe I had made the wrong decision following the hype of Coach Prime here. But then again, he brought something out of me that I've been longing for a while now, and I'll be forever grateful to him for that, which makes me saying this all the more tougher. I had decided that it would be best to make the move back home considering my father's health was fading fast and I didn't want to miss a moment with him. Anyway, my next 2 years of football will be played in California. I'm headed back home. Back home, and my dad's situation was much worse than we all thought. The doctor had given him 2 months to live and I was broken. When I tell you he was half the man he used to be, I meant that. He had lost so much weight during this time that he was unrecognizable. But with all that he was going through, he never wanted me to stop working and I wasn't going to leave his side. So to make both of us happy, I just worked out in the hospital next to him. Wherever he went, I went. I wanted to make the most of our time together, and I really believed that he was going to fight through it like he did last time. But before I could even make a decision on where I would be going to college, my father passed away. The most supporting, loving, caring man I knew was gone, and I didn't know how to handle it. Losing him, I honestly wanted to give up on football. I didn't want to do anything, but all I could keep thinking about was his last words to me. The night before he passed, he told me he was proud of me. He was proud of how I overcame everything that I was up against, and he knew that I was going to do great things no matter where I was in life. And as much as I wanted to lay in bed and eat my life away, I just kept hearing him tell me he was proud of me. And I knew if I wasted this God-given talent, it wouldn't make him proud. So despite my mind telling me to stay in bed, I got up and I went to work. First thing on the list was looking at what offers I had in California. I had to stay close to my mom because whatever pain I was feeling, she was feeling that times 1,000,000. She had just lost her best friend, her husband, a father, someone that she had a bond with since she was a child. So with that in mind and her being in Southern Cal, it only made sense to go to USC. The staff over at USC had actually been reaching out to me since the news came out that I was leaving Colorado to be at home with my parents. They really believed in me and were willing to put in the effort to turn me into a beast. Now, when I say this, I'm not trying to say that the other schools I attended weren't doing this, but here at USC, the training staff was on top of my weight and conditioning. Now, contrary to what y'all think, I was actually pretty fast for my size. Running a 40, I was clocked in at 4.6. And I know that sounds slow, but my game speed and change of direction is what really sold me as the starter for this team. And at practice, I was really in my bag. I was just ready to get into the regular season to prove all my doubters wrong and hopefully make my dad proud of me looking down from above. Our first game coming in ranked at number 6 was a new feeling for me, especially coming from the previous 2 schools. But my first carry, I went down for 7 yards and I wanted more. And coming into this school, I knew there were a lot of other playmakers and honestly, they were better players than me. Already locked in, and Caleb Williams was really that guy. Coming in after winning the Heisman that helped USC dominate, I was just honestly out there to be a support to him as he puts the first points on the board for our team. The next play was an option play when Caleb tossed me the ball at the perfect time and I put my head down and ran through anybody I can for a huge gain. Coach calls a screenplay and yet again I show my versatility as a running back and move the chains again to get us in scoring position. Next thing I know, we're on the 3rd-yard line. I walk into the end zone to get my first touchdown here at USC. Now, the crazy thing about Caleb Williams was he was a threat on the ground and in the air. Like, bro really could dot some shit if he had to, and he was proving it against Hawaii. The way he was playing in the first game was looking like he was making another Heisman run. On his shoulders alone, we managed to get all the way down to the 2-yard line where we run the option, and he actually hands me the ball to my surprise, and I'm back in for another touchdown. But then I started to see the genius in the coaching staff in bringing me here. Because honestly, behind Caleb, USC was a problem. But with the defense having to focus so much attention on Caleb, it left me wide open to become a superstar playmaker for this team. When they sent the blitz, I would be wide open and make my way down the field for a lot of yards. I mean, the defensive coordinator didn't know who to focus on. And to be fair, this team couldn't focus on both of us at the same time. By the time it was all said and done for this drive, Caleb dropped back and found me across the middle for another USC touchdown. And it didn't stop there. We were really running it up against this team, and I didn't want to be too happy about the outcome, but I couldn't help but smile. I finished the game surprisingly with a player of the game honors, rushing for 171 yards, 2 touchdowns with 49 in the air, also a receiving touchdown. Next game was against Washington State, and we were a top 5 school, and that was an amazing feeling. My first time touching the ball, I was on a screen play where I ran for 11 yards for a first down. Further down the field, I get the ball again on 2nd and 7, where I run through a man to get us all the way down to the 2-yard line. And of course, coach gives me the ball again. The offensive line pushes everyone back 3 yards for an easy score. 2nd and 8, and I'm bouncing off multiple players to move the chains and keep the drive alive. And this is why I'm always in awe of Caleb's playing ability, because he always seems to find a dot on the field when everything looks tied up. Not only that, but my guy Mario keeps running after the catch to turn it into a 33-yard reception. The very next play on the 13-yard line, I make a few guys miss and stumble my way into the end zone for another touchdown. Not being cocky, but this is what dominance felt like, and I was enjoying every second of it. Speaking of seconds, with 5 seconds left on the clock, Caleb throws an absolute bomb to Mario for 60 yards as we put up more points on the scoreboard before half. It doesn't stop there as we come back out after the half, and I rushed for 6 yards, getting us down to the 2-yard line, where coach calls a halfback toss, and I run straight into the end zone. With the way I was running through this defense, I thought the score would be much higher than it actually was, but that didn't stop me from continuing my performance. The energy from the team was giving off, run the score up, and if they can't stop us, then put someone else on the field that could. 3rd and 2, coach gives me the ball, the hole is right up the gut, and I run through with my head down and score another one. We finally run the clock out to capture another win, where I rushed for 172 yards, recording 4 touchdowns. Going into our next game, we were ranked number 2 in the nation, and I guess they had gotten to our heads going against Boston College, because they came out immediately and scored. Not only that, but they held us scoreless until the 2nd quarter. No way I was looking to take a L this early in the season, so I went out there doing what I had to do to ensure that didn't come true. Caleb comes out after that and throws a 31-yard dot to Taj, and it was looking like we were about to score before half. Next play, Caleb drops back and yet again dots up, this time to Brendan, getting us closer to scoring. Coach calls a pass play on the 5-yard line, which I'm assuming Boston wasn't ready for, because Lake was wide open in the back of the end zone for another score. Now, we missed a field goal, but on 3rd and 4, Caleb drops back and finds another wide open man in the end zone, and we score again. At this point, I don't know if Boston gave up or what, but the coverage was terrible. And speaking of terrible, our very next possession, we were just going to run down the clock, and the hole was too open to not take advantage of it. I tried to tell y'all I was deceivingly quick. I go off for a nasty 72-yard run for a touchdown. This was one of my biggest rushes ever, and a huge highlight with my time here at USC. And obviously we win the game after coming out shaky, and my 72-yard run not only got me player of the game honors, but it was all over ESPN for weeks. I rushed for 220 yards that game with 2 rushing touchdowns. We had a Pac-12 matchup this week against Arizona State, and I had learned my lesson from last week's game where we came out a little too comfortable. So from that moment on, I made the conscious decision to make sure I gave everything I had no matter what team we were facing. Back-to-back huge receptions from me was keeping this opening drive alive. The next play, I put my head down running up the gut for a crazy 14-yard run, and I was locked in. On 2nd and 8, I came up to the line knowing I wasn't going to run my route. Instead, I was going to get to the weak part of the coverage, and I scored the first touchdown of the game. Next time I was on the field, it was 3rd and inches, and I was looking straight into the end zone. I had tunnel vision. I found the hole quickly, and I was putting points on the board yet again. Arizona State had came out and scored, which put some pressure on us to score again before halftime. Caleb finds an open man as I come all the way across the field to try and give Marshawn a block as he goes for 29 yards. First and goal with seconds on the clock, Caleb connects with Marshawn again. This time he breaks a tackle and scores a touchdown of his own. Back in the game late in the fourth quarter, and Caleb decides to get some in on the ground as he breaks tackles, shows his speed, and scoots down the field for 26 yards. Unfortunately, that drive only got us 3 points as we post another win to the season. That game I rushed for 140 yards and had a rushing touchdown and passing touchdown to my name. We were finally ranked number 1 in the nation, and bruh, we were really playing like it. We come out doing numbers though, cause on a play that Caleb could have kept, he pitched it to me at the last second and I go down the field for more. Unfortunately, that drive turned into nothing, but that next play, the line opens a gap for me and I turn on the Jets as I go for 77 yards into the end zone for our first points of the game. Coming back out on the field, coach puts the ball in the air, and what was looking like a dump down, I turn into a first down. Then on the 3-yard line, I punch it in for another score. We were back on the field after Arizona scores, and the entire offense is thinking score. I'm running through the defense, stumbling for extra yards, and you can see the fight in the way we were playing. Another passing play from the 14-yard line, and Caleb finds the tight end who breaks a tackle to score. Crazy thing is, the level of play we were playing at would only increase as Caleb keeps the ball on an option play and shows why he won the Heisman the year before. A massive 75-yard run for a touchdown on the keeper, and we were looking unstoppable. It's the fourth quarter, and all we have to do is run out the clock, but we weren't going for it. On 4th and 2, instead of calling the punt team, coach puts the ball in the air, and on a dump down, I turn upfield to make the most of my time out there. I get the ball down to the 1-yard line where I punch it in again behind what was going to be the most dominant offensive line in USC history. We win this game convincingly as I run for 209 yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. Now this next game always makes me sick anytime I think about it. Number 20 Notre Dame, and listen, looking back on the game, I'm not sure where things went wrong for us, but it did. I can't honestly put the blame on anyone, not the coaching staff, not the defense, and definitely not us on offense. This Notre Dame team was just ready for all the smoke, and we were too. Being a top 5 ranked team meant we had a target on our back and everyone was gunning for us. On our first drive, we were really looking like the team everyone thought we were. We were number 2 in the nation for a reason, and we weren't going down easily as Caleb throws a fantastic 11-yard dot to Taj for our first score. Our defense comes out and gets a stop, and I go into kill mode. I know this team is going to take advantage of our weaknesses or our shortcomings, and I was trying to ensure we had nothing they could take advantage of. But just as I think that drive turns into nothing. Defense does their job, and we have to capitalize on that as Caleb throws me the ball for a 27-yard gain. I recognize that the Notre Dame defense is getting tired, so I break some tackles to give us another first down. Coach calls a passing play, and I get to the open part of the field for an 18-yard reception. I get called off the field. We score, but so does Notre Dame. This next option play, I break a tackle and get us closer to the 20-yard line. Now on the 20-yard line, I get the ball, break a tackle that would have been for a loss, and turn it into another first down. The very next play, Caleb looks downfield and sees nothing, so he takes off, putting us on the scoreboard again, and I'm thinking this was it. Although there was a lot of time left, I was sure our defense would hold us down and get us back on the field, and I was right. We were working from the 4-yard line, and all we had to do was run the clock out. 3rd and 4, coach calls a screen play, and Notre Dame blows that play up, and now we have to give the ball back with more than 2 minutes left. Of course, they tie the game up in 1 minute, which is nuts, and now it's on us to get into field goal position and walk out of there with a 3-point win. But on our first play, we get called back because Mario doesn't know how to let go of his assignment. 2nd and 20, Caleb throws a strike for 27 yards, which puts us back on 1st and 10. Now, Caleb took a sack on first down, which puts us at 2nd and 15, where I go and make a crazy catch to make it 3rd and 1. We needed 1 yard to keep our drive going, but coach calls a pass play again. Caleb targets me, and I get smacked, forcing me to drop the ball. 4th and 1, and instead of coach handing me the ball, Caleb throws a duck across the middle, and we give the ball back to Notre Dame. With 18 seconds left in the game, Notre Dame airs us out on a crazy reception. They spike the ball, bring the kicking team out, and that's how we lost our first game that season. Not only that, but to our rivals. I rushed for 147 yards that game and never saw the end zone. Coming off a L like that, I knew coach was going to kill us in practice, and he really tried to kill us. And it was great timing because not only were we facing a top 10 school in Utah, who was at number 8, but we had fallen from number 2 to number 10. I personally didn't like falling from grace like that, and I went out and tried my best to dominate this team. Like, yeah, we were ranked number 10, but in all fairness, we were a top 2 school that just had an off game, and I had to let them goofies know. On 2nd and 10 from the 35-yard line, I found the gap and saw the end zone in front of me, and just when I thought I was going to score, I got tackled from behind. Coach let me pick up from where I ended, and of course, I walked right in the end zone, setting the tone for this game. Special team comes out and returns a punt, and I'm back on my grind. 4th and 2, I'm making sure Caleb has someone to throw the ball to as I get us a first down and some. 2nd and 4, coach puts the ball in my hands as I run for 16 yards, putting us in position to score. Unfortunately, we don't score a thing, and Utah does. The next play would shake our confidence as we run the option play, and out of nowhere, the D-back takes the ball from Caleb's pitch and scores a touchdown, tying the game up at 14. We knew we couldn't make any more mistakes like that, so with that in mind, we had to tee up. I come out, bounce to the outside, and I turn on the jets, or at least I thought I did because I was quickly tackled seconds later. On 3rd and goal, I get lucky as I bounce off a couple of defenders to score and get us some separation in this game. Defense gets a stop, and on 3rd and 13, Caleb finds me over the middle for a tough catch to give us a first down. But after multiple attempts, coach sends out the kicking team, and at least we're not walking away with nothing. Utah puts up 7, and now we're faced with the same situation as the Notre Dame game, where we just need to run out the clock and walk out of here winning by 3. On 3rd and 8, I know I just need to get a first down, so I tunnel vision and get it. And just like that, we're back to winning. I rushed for a massive 248 yards and 3 touchdowns with the player of the game honors. With that last win, we jumped from number 10 to 7 in ranking, and we were not trying to go backwards, only for a progression from here, especially if we wanted to make a play for a national championship. Although Oregon State's record didn't show it, they were going to give us a run for our money. We put up 3 points first and then come back out, and Caleb makes a crazy play to Mario, who had come back from injury for our first touchdown. Oregon State somehow ties the game up, and we're back in a winning drive situation. It was a Caleb and Mario show this game because those two were literally keeping us in the game. I was just there for moral support to keep it a bean. That is until the defense forgot about me as I moved to the left side of the field where I'm wide open for a touchdown, which ended up being the last score of the game. Another close game for us, and I somehow win player of the game with 142 yards and 17 in the air with a receiving touchdown. So going into next week, I wasn't really expecting our rank to move up, but looking at the top 25 poll, it was looking like we really couldn't lose any more games or the national title would be too far out of reach. And while I was scrolling on ESPN, I saw my name in an article, so I thought I'd take a look, and I honestly couldn't believe it, but your boy was on the Heisman watch list, bruh. I was so caught up in the wave of the season, I had no idea my name was being tossed around as a candidate. And not only that, but bruh, I was number 1 on the list as well. Let's be real, how could this not get to my head? I was too happy, and I couldn't wait to tell my pops. I really wish he was here to share this moment with me, man. Like, he believed in me all these years, making me work out, getting me off my ass when I thought my football career was over, believed in me when I wanted to transfer. Like, bro, I really had to dedicate the rest of this season to him. I really had to go crazy. Next game of the season was against Cal, and in the words of Kobe and YG the Beast, I was a different beast, same animal. My first carry, I got huge yards. Second carry, I got a tough 6 yards for a first down. Unfortunately, that's where that drive ended. Cal comes out and scores, and we had to make something shake on this drive as Caleb finds me for a 13-yard reception. Next play, back in the air, and Caleb gives me the ball, turning nothing into something yet again. We'll leave that drive with the time running out, sending us into halftime. Caleb makes a connection to get us into the red zone where coach gives me the ball, and I put up our first touchdown of the game. The defense stalls out Cal, and we're back on the field when Caleb makes a terrible mistake and pitches me the ball even though I was on the ground. Luckily, I was able to catch him and make a tackle, but at that moment, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone because there is no way Caleb made the same mistake as Shador. Defense couldn't do anything being put into that position, and now we're back in a situation where we had no business being in, especially against a team like this. So it's back to business as I make a wide open catch across the middle of the field to keep our drive alive. 3rd and 4 on a pass that I thought was intended for me. The tight end comes down with it instead, putting us on the 3-yard line. When we put it back in the air, where Caleb finds me in a super tight window, I hold on to the ball for what would be the game-winning touchdown. While I was happy that we won the game, where I produced like this, it would help my Heisman campaign. It wasn't good for my health. Like heart racing, getting put in dangerous throwing predicaments. While I was here for it, I don't know how long I would actually be here for it, if you understand what I'm saying. But with that win, I ran for 127 yards, a rushing and a passing touchdown. So the motto going in for this week and for the rest of the season was no more close games. With only 3 games left in the regular season, we had to make sure we were punishing these non-ranked teams and winning the games against ranked teams. It was raining here in Southern California, which honestly it never does. And that reminded me of something that my dad used to say. He used to say that rain reminds all things to grow. And I never understood that until now. To most people, rain could be controversy, struggles, or anything in life that you might be going through. Every loss is a lesson. We shouldn't go through things in life and not gain anything from it. And I know what I've been through these past 4 years might not be a lot to most of what you guys are going through, but it was painful. And on top of that, losing my dad was crushing. But through all this rain, I finally realized my growth. I realized we all go through something, and sometimes it's needed to grow. And that's what the rain is. You can't stop the rain. All you can do is go through it and hopefully come out on the other side dry. And I knew that with this team and the position I was currently in, this was my season. And I know some of you might be going through something that feels like you'll never make it out. But just remember, everyone has their season. Everyone has their breakthrough. We just have to stay strong enough to see it. And I hate that it took me so long to see it, but here I am, walking into my season. Everything that I had worked so hard for, all the situations I put myself in, brought me to this point, and I'm grateful for it. Having this moment at this point in my life was going to ensure that I would have a great career moving forward. Although this wasn't my greatest games rushing, I still went off for 235 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. This was the turning point for me in my career for sure. And when you know it, our next game was in Colorado, where I had just transferred from. And listen, I was not interested in playing around with this team as I come out and rush for 45 yards for a touchdown. Now, the next time we were on the field is why I said I was not wanting to play around with this team, as Caleb thought he had a read, which turned into a Colorado pick 6, giving them the lead early on in this game. We had to get back on the scoreboard in a dominating fashion, so on 1st and 10, coach gives me the ball, and 25 yards later, I'm back in the end zone. Defense could not get us stopped, and it was back to the field trying to make this game close. There was no way this was going to be my return to Colorado. I could not lose to this team, and I didn't want to, as I scored another touchdown, this time from the 1-yard line. Defense gets a stop, and I know everyone is looking at me to make some plays, and I'm all in on the idea. I was hoping that they would want to lean on me, and I wasn't going to let the team down. Like, let's be honest. I'm on the top of the Heisman list for a reason, and I wanted everyone to feel that. With that being said, I get back into the end zone with 1:36 left in the game, which meant it was up to the defense to get us back on the field, and they hold us down with 2 timeouts and 43 seconds left in the game, and interstage right Caleb Williams. 2 incredible passes that get us in position to score, and with 30 seconds left in the game, I get the ball and I ice it. Not only that, but I break USC's school record for most rushing touchdowns in the season. Yes, another close game to a team in which we should have slaughtered, but I'll take it. 216 rushing yards along with 5 touchdowns, and I had to go give Coach Prime a huge hug as he told me he's sorry about my loss, which meant a lot to me. In the polls, we had moved up 1 spot after that win, and I was still on top of the polls in the Heisman race. But back on the field, we needed to close out the regular season with a win against UCLA to keep our hopes of a shot at the national title alive. I came out with the same energy I had a few weeks ago. No close games. An 11-yard run would keep the chains moving as we hoped to score first. And late in the second quarter, I get the opportunity to strike first with a nice 21-yard run. After halftime, UCLA put up 7, and now we're down by 3, and we need to score. 2nd and 7, right up the gut is the first down marker, and I go for it. Now it's 2nd and goal, and I cut back upfield to get into the end zone, putting us up a score. After that, coach said run the clock out, but I didn't want a close game if I could help it. 38 seconds left in the game, and I was on a mission as I come so close to scoring, but I guess coach just wanted to win because he kneeled the ball to close out the game, only winning by 3. I finished up that game with 189 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 71 yards in the air. And the reason I wanted to run the score up was because we actually dropped to number 5 even after a win. But it's crazy how everything worked out for us in the end, because sitting at number 1 was Washington, who we would be facing for the Pac-12 championship. Now, I'm not saying if we beat them, we would get a shot at the national title, but beating them would help us out a little, right? That's exactly what we needed to happen. We needed to come out here and dominate, and with Washington being number 1 in the nation, this was going to be a tough task. Luckily, the team was out there ready to make things happen, and on 1st and goal from the 3-yard line, I run in to score first, and hopefully that would take some of the air out of Washington. I wanted Washington to know that they were the inferior team, and my next play, I broke what would be a loss of yards and turned it into 12 yards and a first down. 1st and goal, we have an opportunity to go up by 2 scores, and I see a hole, and I knock a couple of kids out as I put 6 back on the board. Caleb Williams on 3rd and 10 makes a crazy throw and catch to Mario for 34 yards, which then motivates me to break off for 18 yards, breaking tackles, showing off my agility. Another one of my rushes gets us down to the 1-yard line, where I take it back to the high school days when when I'm this close, I'm going to score. I know clock management was an issue for us in the past games, but this was a totally different situation with this team. Not only that, but I was in a different element. Like, I was blacked out this whole game. I had my eyes dead set on something, and no matter what, I was going to get it. 3rd and 3, I cut up to the open part of the field. Caleb makes an easy throw, and I take us all the way back down to the 3-yard line. But on 4th down, coach gives me the ball, and I just can't capitalize on the field position. Defense was playing a hell of a game, and we get into field position to put 3 points on the board, increasing our lead. And that's how we beat the number 1 team in the nation for the Pac-12 championship. The world was in shock because our defense put on a clinic that game, and the offense came through and smacked Washington as well. I finished the game with 186 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Standing behind our coach and with our team as we received that Pac-12 trophy meant a lot, but none of us was prepared for the news we would receive next. Looking at the top 25 poll, and you wouldn't believe it, but we actually went from the number 5 spot to the number 1 spot, which meant we were actually getting the opportunity to play for the national championship. Not only that, but the votes were in, and guess who won that Heisman? Me. I had won the Heisman, and the awards kept coming on in, bro. I won the Robert Maxwell Award, the Walter Camp Award, and I don't know his first name, but the Walker Award, all in one season. Major bittersweet moment for me, simply because my father wasn't able to attend the ceremony with my mom and I. I knew what he would tell me, and that was, son, it's not over yet. One more game to solidify yourself as the greatest. And when I tell you I went out and played with that energy, that's exactly what I did. National championship is number 1 versus number 2, and that number 2 was Oklahoma. I came out being the beast that I know I am, and on my first carry, I went off for 17 yards. The very next play, I showed the world what I was really capable of when I broke free for 67 yards, putting us right into the red zone. Immediately after that, I bounced off a kid for a 12-yard run touchdown. I was lit from that point on. I was ultra locked in because on 2nd and 3rd, I really put Oklahoma on notice as I go untouched for a 53-yard touchdown. Bruh, I was playing with so much aggression because if you told me I would be here, especially after last season, I wouldn't see how. In the red zone, and coach calls a passing play. Caleb finds me in a tight spot. I hit a spin and we score again. Listen, I'm blacked out in this game. Even sitting here watching the highlight, it amazes me because on 2nd and 1, I turned out one of the most amazing runs in my career, breaking tackles like they're not even there. And with that play, I break another school record for rushing, and my total had came up to 2,682 yards on the season. To add insult to injury, my next carry I broke off another huge one, and this time I broke the school record for most rushing yards in one game, as I had rushed for 449 yards at that time. And just like that, all of my dreams had came true. Not only had I won damn near every award a running back could, I won the Heisman, the conference, and now we were going down as the best team in college football. And to my surprise, I could go down as one of the best running backs to ever play at USC. Not to mention, I did all that at over 280 pounds. That game was one for the ages, as I finished with 477 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, and 1 receiving touchdown. I didn't know what my future held after this, but what I had coming was going to be a huge surprise to everyone. Now, what happened next in my career, even I wasn't prepared for. To be fair, I thought I was headed back to USC for my last year, get my degree, get into journalism, you know, that. Well, after last season, winning damn near every award and then Heisman, there were new plans for my life. Of course, being a Heisman winner meant there were a lot of endorsements headed my way, but before we could get into any of that, I needed an agent. Then I did a bunch of interviews, spoke with more agents, found out I needed a manager. Wait a minute. This was a lot. I really just needed a chance to breathe and process all of this, because the way people were acting, it was as if I didn't capitalize on this moment, then it wasn't going to happen. And in a sense, they were correct. Coming off the success of my last season in college, NFL teams were coming after me, all making promises that all sounded the same. My favorite line was, "If you fall to this pick, we would love to have you." But let's look at the statistics. Running backs take the most damage in their careers. On top of that, I'm already a huge risk because I'm pushing 300 pounds. On top of that, there's always going to be the next best thing coming out of the same position I was in. So I wasn't really interested in the meetings and the promises, and I'm going to say this as genuinely as I know how, and that's just straight up. I was looking for the best bag possible. Forget all the promises. I wanted the best deal on paper with a guarantee included. And honestly, that's when I started weeding through the promises. I was a higher risk draft prospect solely due to my weight, and I respected that more than the lies. Because I don't know about the other prospects, but I wasn't trying to get to the draft night and be the one sitting looking stupid when my name is never called. So after being brutally honest with the scouts and them being brutally honest with me, there was one team that was really and truly invested. So much so that they even invited me to a private tryout based on the fact that they knew my potential and would rather I not go to the combine and reserve the number solely for them. And in hindsight, that sounds crazy, but they had gained my trust so much at that point I was locked in. So coaching staff brought me out. We ran some drills, discussed situations that I might come across as an NFL player. I mean, pretty much treated me as if I was already on the team. It was an amazing experience. Then word got out that I wasn't participating in the draft combine, and things went left in the sports media quickly.
I mean, who in the hell does he think he is? 300 pounds? I'm sure he's well over that now, sitting at home doing nothing, eating a pizza. It's blasphemy. How dare you think for 1 second that NFL teams are just foaming at the mouth to draft you? Yes, you won the Heisman and plenty other awards from this past season, but let's talk about the elephant in the room. Who is the elephant in the room, Stephen, you might ask? And I hate to be facetious, my brother, but you are the elephant in question. You are the elephant in the room. I can't believe that I'm saying this, but Jeremy Whitney will be a bust. He won't even survive the preseason, and you can tell him Stephen A. Smith said that.
Listen, if I lived my life according to what the media had to say, then I wouldn't have made it this far in my career. But yet, and still, here I am. By the way, Stephen A. Smith and I are great friends to this day. But let's fast forward through the boring parts and get straight to the draft. Coach Prime did show up on my behalf that night, and I still appreciate everything he did for me in my career. Again, he was the first to really let me be me on the field, and if it hadn't been for him, I don't think the world would have really seen my potential put on display at USC. First round, pick 13 goes to the New York Jets, and that's where I was picked up at. The contract was good for 4 years worth $17.6 million, and I know this is unusual for rookie contracts, but I got $8 million guaranteed. It's crazy that some teams weren't even interested in a guarantee, but the Jets were looking for someone as dominant as me to round out the offense. I didn't waste any time signing that contract, and I'm not going to waste your time getting into the season. My rookie debut was against the true New York team in the Buffalo Bills. My first carry was the opening play for our season, and I did not disappoint with my first rush being for 13 yards. No way was I going to let people think I was going to be a bust. Can I just mention being lined up next to Aaron Rodgers as a rookie? Bro, what? My dad was a huge fan of Aaron, and I mean, all he could do was talk about wanting to light him up. But still, he was a fan. My next big run, I had to hit my little dancey dance, and my welcome to the NFL moment was shortly after that. Aaron was on my head about the celebration and told me to save it for the end zone. Stop wasting my time out on the field and get back in the huddle so we can put up some points. What a high killer that was for me, because I thought I was doing something. Then I started to notice that the team was actually putting up points without me being on the field. So I had to come back out and lock in, and I do that, catching a tough pass from Aaron to move the chains. My next play, I was finally able to show off my strength as I stiff arm a defender to capture some extra yards before going down. I started to see my role early for this team and just flat out, I was the tough yard getter. Coach had warned me before committing to the team that I was going to be getting anywhere from 25 to 30 touches a game. Now y'all should know me by now and realize I was more than happy to hear that, but it was something about the way these NFL players were hitting that made me want to reconsider. I mean, I might bounce off one player, but the second guy coming in to hit had bad intentions connected to it. But we ended up taking an L in our season opener, 23-14. I had 24 carries for 114 yards. I honestly wasn't too upset about losing our first game of the season. I had to be fair. There were a lot of new pieces to this team, and the coaching staff was doing their best to figure out which pieces went together to create success for us down the line. But just in our second game of the season, late in the second quarter, we lost our biggest piece to the puzzle. Aaron Rodgers gets sacked the wrong way and is taken off the field with an undisclosed injury, and the energy on that field shifted as the coach brings in Zach Wilson, and coach pulls me aside and says, I hope you're ready to prove you're not a bust to the world. I didn't know what he meant until I got back out on the field because damn near every play was going to me. 3rd and 2, I get the call again. I follow my blocks, knock a guy off his feet, and move the chains. 3rd and 5, I get the call again. This time I see my blocks on the outside getting us another first down. I had to flex on them boys after that one. 2nd and 13. Linemen are literally throwing their assignments to the ground as they lead the way for me to get a nice 17-yard run to put us in the red zone. The very next play, I get us even closer to the promised land as I find a couple of gaps in the defense and get taken down at the 10-yard line. The play after that, I thought this was it as I put my head down and get taken down inches before I reach the end zone. You know we had to run it back as the line pushes everyone in the end zone, and I walked in behind them to score my first NFL touchdown, and you know we had to show out just a little bit. Now that score tied the game up. Our defense came out and got a stop on 3rd and 4. Zach drops back, finds me on a dump down. I push one in the dirt, fighting for the first, but end up actually scoring another touchdown. 2 touchdowns in one game. I was through the roof with excitement, and unfortunately all it took was Aaron Rodgers getting injured. Crazy, because that was the good news. Bad news was that Dallas came back out and scored, sending us to overtime. Luckily we got the ball first, and my first carry was another huge one, setting the pace for us. Zach gets us another first down after a nice throw and catch, and it's my turn again. I find the right holes and get us down to the 19-yard line. Coach calls a pass play, and when you know it, Zach dots up and gets us the score to win the game. I rush for a nice 213 yards with 1 rushing and receiving touchdown.
Touchdown, New York.
You know, I hate to say it, but we were really finding ourselves as players without Aaron being there. Coming off a win last week in OT after he went down, and now we're in week 3, starting and finishing without him is huge. Bro, not only was I making plays on the ground, but Zach was eating as well. Being a dual threat QB with a real threat standing behind him was going to be nasty, and Zach was really like that. He would throw a pass for a first down using his feet to avoid the sack one play. Then I would follow up right behind him, back on the ground, reading my holes and getting a first down as well. Late in the 3rd quarter, we were down by 1 and we needed to score. Coach calls my number and I open it up for a nice 12-yard run. 3rd and 10, Zach drops back. He's not making the reads I think he should make. Instead, I become a playmaker and Zach throws it to me in a super tight window for a first down on the 2-yard line. We line up in the strong I, and I'm in for another rushing touchdown on the season. And not only that, but coach wants to go for 2 and puts it in my hand, and I'm back in, no sweat. But of course, the defense can't get a stop, and not only that, but we're down by 3 with 1 minute left in the game. Coach hands me the ball on 2nd and 11, and I get us a first down. The next play, I put my body on the line, calling for a pass from Zach to get us closer to the 40-yard line. Zach took some sacks, and instead of sending out the kicking team, coach sends us out for the Hail Mary, which would turn out to be genius due to a pass interference call in the end zone. Now, coach pulls me out of the game. We go for it with 1 second left on the clock, and we end up losing. Next game is against Kansas City, and we already know they have a potent offense, so that means we have to come out standing on business. Luckily, my offensive line is on the same wave, and I start the game with an 18-yard run. Now, unfortunately, that drive only gives us 3 points, and Kansas City is now up by 11. I'm breaking to the outside, hopefully giving the team the momentum boost they need to turn it up just a little. Coach decides to run the same play again, and I'm giving him similar results. Then from the 3-yard line, we get our first touchdown of the game before going in for halftime. In the locker room, coach was telling me he was going to lean on me this next half, so I needed to get prepared mentally for the physical abuse I was about to take. After the catch I made, I had to flex on my opponents to let them know I was still standing strong, because I come right back that very next play, bounce to the outside, and get us another first down. 2nd and 7, coach sends me on a wheel route, and no one is guarding me, so after the catch, I get about 15 more yards and put us in position to score. Coach was serious about leaning on me because I'm getting the call from the 6-yard line this time as the line opens a huge hole and I'm back into the end zone. Now, I was hoping that the defense would get a stop, which they didn't, and I was hoping that we would score regardless, but neither one of those wishes came true as we lose another game on the season, 24-17. I rushed for 107 yards and had 2 rushing touchdowns. Next week, the pressure was even higher as we faced off against Denver, where I opened up the game with an almost patent and big run. That turned into nothing, and Denver was on the board with 10 my next drive. On 2nd and 6, I'm back to the outside, and I pick up another first down. The next play, I run through another big gap for another first down, and it's starting to look as if we are a run-heavy offense. Zach wasn't really able to make those plays he was making in week 2 and 3, and coach was looking to give me the ball as much as possible. And on 2nd and 10, late in the second, I run behind my blockers, break a tackle, and somehow come out of the rubble. Not only that, but I break 2 more tackles for what would be a defining moment in my NFL career as I scored a huge touchdown in Denver, because after that play, I was humbly known as the Mack Truck. The way I would run people over, and once I catch speed, I was hard to stop. And although we were losing, I could tell the fans in the stands were wanting to see more of me. I mean, every time I would get the ball, I was running through somebody, and the crowd would react every time. I don't know how, but the away team's crowd was giving me energy to continue. I eventually walked into the end zone for the 2nd time of the game, but again, we were still down. Defense actually gets off the field, leaving us enough time to tie the game up. On 2nd and 10, I get the ball to get us another first down. Coach pulls me out and sends me back in with 17 seconds left with the ball on the 1-yard line. I do my job putting us an extra point away from tying the game up. But to everyone's surprise, we go for 2 without me on the field, and we lose yet again. But that game, I rushed for 210 yards and had 3 rushing touchdowns. I can't lie, that was a dumb loss on the coach's behalf, especially coming into a tough game against the Eagles. As much as I hated that for the team, and especially me, I knew this was no place to hold grudges because the NFL season is going to move on with or without you, and I wasn't one to be left behind. Speaking of being left behind, here we were again losing early in a tough game, trying to play catch up against a very strong defense. I'm trying my best to play my role on this team, and on 3rd and 10, Zach finds me on the sideline where I make a crazy catch to keep the chains moving. Zach makes another great pass and catch to get us on the 4-yard line, where you already know I get the go-ahead to run it into the end zone. Shout out to our defense this game for not only putting us back on the field over and over again, but getting us safety to put us up by 2 points, and all we need to do is kill the clock. But on 1st and goal, we had something extra planned as the line opens the gates for me, and I have no choice but to score, putting us further in the lead. I'm glad we scored because the Eagles scored in record timing without using a timeout. But the defense had nothing to worry about because the Eagles defense was finding it hard to continue to chase me down. And on 3rd and inches, I go for my last run of the game, which would be another touchdown to hopefully put this game out of reach. In a shocking upset, we beat the Eagles 17-26. I rushed for 163 yards and had 3 rushing touchdowns. The Mack truck was in full effect from that point on, and I was loving every bit of it.
For the first time in history on this platform that I have been blessed with, I'm going to have to apologize. Now, I know I don't do this often, but this one is needed. I'm a man, a full-grown man to be exact. And when I say this, I know it's going to be a shock to most, but it will not be to some. There are a lot of players that I could compare him to, and a couple of the names you might like. For instance, the Fridge, and the one I love the most, the Bus, Jerome Bettis. I need to apologize to none other than Jeremy Mack Truck Whitney. I know some of you didn't hear that correctly, so I'm going to say it again. Jeremy Mack Truck Whitney, I apologize. Why, you may say? Oh, because he's not only the biggest running back in the league, literally and number-wise, but he's destroying his competition as a rookie. Did you know, in a secret tryout held by the New York Jets, that Jeremy was officially clock running the 40 at a 4.56? In college, they caught him at 4.6. The man came into the league knowing he needed to be faster and worked his tail off to do it. Not only that, but his game speed is something different. Once he gets those big thighs moving, he can't be caught or stopped. This boy, no, let me correct that. This man is not only just power, he's speed, deceitful speed. And I'm just going on the record and saying that Stephen A. Smith has been deceived as well. And I know that sounds bad, so let me tell you some of the things that I like about the Mack truck. Number one, he's consistent. He's consistently running the ball hard every down, every week, so much that he's won countless players of the week in his division. Should I name them? Week 5, he rushed for 210 yards and 3 touchdowns. Week 8, 257 yards, 4 touchdowns. Week 9, 191 yards and a touchdown. 153 receiving yards and a touchdown. Week 10, 259 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. And I could keep going, but why waste your time? You've seen the highlights. And not only that, but he's making big plays against big defensive playmakers. He's a man amongst boys, and he's just toying with them. I'm not sure if we've seen even half of his full potential yet. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am a fan of Mack Truck. I'll do you one better. I'm a stan of Jeremy Mack Truck Whitney. And I can't wait to see him run it up in the playoffs this season. Now. I don't know how far they will go with Aaron Rodgers coming back from injury. He hasn't played in a while, but I know if Jeremy Whitney is on my parlay, I'm going to win. He's a winner. He's a competitor. And above all else, he's him. Jeremy Mack Truck Whitney, ladies and gentlemen.
The playoffs had begun, and in our first round, we got to meet the Bills again, and this time I wasn't walking out of that stadium with an L. On 2nd and 6, I found a small hole that led to the outside where I saw nothing but green in front of me as I start the game off with a dynamic touchdown. On 2nd and 9, I run the wheel route, and Aaron finds me for a dot on the sideline to move the chains. On 3rd and 8, Aaron sends me in the motion on a cross route, and somehow I'm wide open down the field, scoring another touchdown to give us the lead before going into halftime. And you won't believe this, but coach calls the same play. I get set in motion again on 2nd and 11. The same play crosses up the defense again. I'm wide open. Aaron throws the perfect pass, and I'm back into the end zone. 3 huge plays back-to-back like this is the type of energy to kill a team's momentum. This will become true because early in the 4th on 2nd and 10, Aaron drops back and throws an absolute dot over the top of the defense as we score yet again. Just to finish off the Bills with 2 minutes left in the game, coach calls a run play on the 2-yard line, and I'm putting points back on the board to advance us to the 2nd round of the playoffs. I rushed for 133 yards, and had 2 rushing touchdowns. Now the next round of the playoffs, and this was the beginning of the end as we were facing off against the overpowered Baltimore Ravens. Coming out being down 14-0 after no productive drives, we were looking to produce late in the first quarter. On the 20-yard line, Aaron Rodgers drops back and finds a dot across the middle to Wilson to get us down to the 1-yard line, where I walk into the end zone, getting us our first points of the game. On 2nd and 1, with just seconds to go in the half, I bounce to the outside for 39 yards before quickly going out of bounds to stop the clock, hopefully putting us in position to score. Unfortunately, we couldn't punch it in and only leave with 3, but coming back from halftime, we run our favorite pass play and confuse the defense yet again. This time, I come up with a huge lead block, and Wilson breaks the tackle to get us all the way into the red zone. On 2nd and 8, coach calls my number, and I fight my way into the end zone, trying to make this game a little bit more manageable. Unfortunately, our defense did not show up to play, and we're down 35-18 late in the fourth when we run our patented play that miraculously works again. I'm tiptoeing down the sideline as I put up another touchdown. And I guess the Baltimore defense felt bad for us because with 58 seconds left on the clock, a huge hole opens up for me, and I take advantage, especially considering this game has been over for a while, and I score my last touchdown of the season. All that hard work leads to us losing this game and ending our season early. I rushed for 209 yards and scored 3 rushing touchdowns. Finishing up that season, I went on to go to the Pro Bowl. I won Rookie of the Year, MVP of the season, and NFC Offensive Player of the Year. And I'm happy to say in my 5th season, I was actually able to win a Super Bowl. And that's my story. My career was an amazing one that I wouldn't trade for the world. And I guess that answers the question. A 300-pound running back could do it all, and I'm happy to say I was the one to do it first.
Oh my God.
You like it?
Ma, you really put a different spin on Christmas this year.
Nah, you being a hater. I did the best I could do by myself.
Why didn't you hire somebody to do this for you?
Hire somebody? Christmas isn't about hiring somebody. You're supposed to decorate with family.
Where's Raiden? He ain't been doing nothing.